Welcome everybody. It's Katie with Embody Daily, and today I'm here with Anthony. Anthony is somebody who has been on the Sinclair Method, I think, for a little over 2 years now, and he and I have been kind of online friends for, I don't know, about the past 6 months or so, chatting about things on the Sinclair Method and Naltrexone and everything. So I'm so excited to have you here and to be able to chat with you today about your Sinclair Method experience and what you've learned over the past couple of years. So thank you, Anthony, for speaking with me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're right there.
Yeah. So, let's get started. So you've been on the method for a little over 2 years, I think. Like, when did you find out about the Sinclair Method, and what led you to it?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. About a year before the Sinclair Method, I went to my doctors. I had a bit of a mini breakdown. I had a few bereavements. My drinking got out of control. A few friends of mine passed away. I was always a daily drinker. I was drunk every night, but it got to the point where the cravings were I was hitting them cravings in the morning. I was quitting them cravings in the afternoon, and I wanted to drink. Anyway, I came back from a family members for a visit and went back home to my mum. My mum sort of saw me in a bit of a bad state, and she booked an appointment with my doctor, and I just opened up, said to my doctor, I'm an alcoholic, I've got problems, I can't stop drinking, I'm losing my brain, because every time it got to the point where I could stop, but I would relapse. So what happened at the beginning is it was having to gradually stop. And that's how I started, was trying to gradually stop. And anyway, went to the doctors, done counselling for a year, stopped the drinking, managed to sort of been able to knock it off for 2 weeks at a time. Then it became a month, then it became 2 months, but then the cravings would get bigger, especially birthdays. I'd get triggers, or Christmas or Easter or things like that, or social events or summertime. England is a very big drinking culture. I suppose it's like that all over the world.
Yeah.
So for me, I would get these months where I'd get triggers, and these triggers got more heavier and heavier as time went on. The doctor initially gave me a medication called a Camprosate, an anti-craving medication, which I didn't feel worked well for me, because I would still get the triggers. I'd still want to drink from time to time. So anyway, cut a long story short, I got to this point where I was just praying all the time. I thought, if I don't do something about this, I'm going to end up dead. People don't realize with addiction, it's an all or nothing thing. It just goes bam, and that's it. It can just hit you. So anyway, I think one night I had a little bit of a mini breakdown, and I was literally looking up, researching on YouTube and on Instagram, and I'm looking at all these recovery videos, and I found that video with the Claudia Christian, a TED talk, on the cure of alcoholism, and I thought, that's a bit bizarre. Anyway, I watched it, and I watched it again and again and again, and the more I watched it, the more I could relate to certain parts of it. So I kind of thought to myself, oh, it's a celebrity doing this. At the beginning, my mind was, I bet you're going to have money to do this. You're going to have to be rich. I don't know, just something came into my brain. Anyway, I started researching on the medication Naltrexone and how to get the medication. Now, initially, I had to do reading up on the NHS and how to ask for it and how to get it prescribed and blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
And I'd done a lot of reading. And what happened was, initially, the first time I got it, I actually bought it online.
Like from India, an India pharmacy kind of thing, or? Yeah.
Oh no, I got it illegally. I took a gamble. I took a gamble, basically. But I got to the point where the relapses were just getting to the point. I was getting to the point where those relapses were getting so strong. I was prepared to take that gamble on my life. I was like, do you know what? But don't get me wrong. Before I took that gamble, I looked online, saw the box of tablets. I typed up the name, which was, I think, the name of the box of the tablets. I think not Vivitrol. It was a name of
Revia or something.
Rivia, yeah. And I basically typed it up and all of that, and so I knew it was the legit kind of thing, and looked at the box and all that. So I ordered it, took it, got it back, And this happened in between a process of relapse. So I relapsed literally just before the pills arrived. Anyway, cut a long story short, I went on holiday and I thought, you know what? I don't care what people are going to say. I've got to do this. I've got to get this obsession out of the way because this is just getting stupid now. Let's see if it works. Went away, went abroad, and I tried the medication. Went to a bar actually. Took about a couple of €100 with me, or 150 euros. I thought, you know what? Listen, let's just see. Is this for real? I've got to take this. You know, it was a gamble worth taking. I had this glass of red wine, and it sat there literally from 9 o'clock at night to about 12.
Wow.
And I mean, I even forced myself to finish that glass off. And I thought, hold on a minute, is this me trying to convince myself that I'm getting well? Or what is this? So I'm walking back from the village to my mum and dad's place. And they had late night shops, like 24-hour shops. And I couldn't feel any triggers. I just couldn't feel any. It was just like, I don't know, it was almost like I was being shielded.
Wow. I love that explanation, being shielded.
I did feel shielded, and it was weird. And then anyway, the lead up to this was quite funny because I actually told my mum and my dad at the airport that I got these medications. I was surprised because my mum gave me a very good response. She was like, do you know what? If it's going to work, I'll support you. But I think what it was with me is I'd done a lot of reading about it. I showed them articles. I showed them clips on the internet telly of the Claudia's TED's talks, bits about Naltrexone. So they kind of knew that I was doing my research before I even done it, if you know what I mean. So they kind of, I had to make them hear me. I had to make them listen. Even though I don't live with my parents, I live on my own. It was very important that my parents knew what my journey was and the journey I was going on. So they could kind of, whether they understood or not, they kind of knew that I was trying to do something about it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't just doing it just so I could pick up and have a drink.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes people get that mixed up, that when you're on the Sinclair Method, you're doing it just so you can have a drink.
Yeah.
The whole point of it is
can you speak to your experience and kind of perspective on that when people have that as a viewpoint? Is it being an excuse to drink now that you've been on it for over 2 years? And I mean, I know you hardly drink anymore, but yeah, I'd love to hear your perspective.
Do you know what I think advice I would actually have to give to people would be like, listen to the sound of your own, listen to the rhythm of your own heartbeat. Don't listen to what other people are going to say. At the end of the day, if you're drinking it in combination with the Naltrexone, let it work naturally. Don't overthink about it. Don't overcomplicate it. It's doing its job. Your body, when you really relax into it, your body will sort of tell you, I don't want that no more. Or it's almost like a plate of food in front of you, but you're bloated and you can't eat no more. Or it's almost like, I think you said it in one of your interviews last week, where, you know, you go to a restaurant, but it changes over ownership. So the food becomes less and less desirable. It doesn't become unpleasant, but it just becomes less and less desirable. That's what happens, because when you're drinking on the Sinclair Method, the drink eventually starts acting like the background, and the company becomes more important than the alcohol. It's just there to kind of wet your palate. And there's always ways around that, because like a lot of people go, well, what do I do if I drink a bottle of wine one night? I always say to people, have a glass of juice next to you, have a glass of Coke next to you with that glass of wine. Because a lot of the time, what does alcohol do? It dehydrates us. So if you have a Coke next to you or a glass of water next to you, you're just going to constantly keep yourself hydrated. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So a lot of it's trying to change that physical habit by the little things that you do. Having that glass of water next to you, for argument's sake. Trying to take up a little bit of a hobby. I mean, if you can, like reading a book, or the Cure for Alcoholism by Dr. Roy Scarpa. Go through the chapters. I mean, I've got 2 books that I swear by. Obviously, that's one of them, The Cure for Alcoholism.
Mhm.
And there was another book by Dr. Adi Jaffe, which I've bought,
Oh
called
yeah, I have that
The
too.
Abstinence Myth.
Yeah, great book.
And do your reading, do a bit of research, read. You've been given a gold ticket to basically have your life back and have control. So the way I'm looking at it is, if you can see a reduction, then it's an improvement. Just because your reduction might be different to someone else's reduction doesn't necessarily mean that you're not improving. It just means that your body may react to the medication differently. Your mindset might work differently from someone else's. So, it worked relatively quite quick for me. I mean, but I did at the beginning. I mean, I remember coming home, going to a friend's house and wanting gin. So I went to his friend's house and we laughed all night. And I think it was more the company than the drink. And I remember going back from there and I went to the shop out of habit and I bought a half bottle of gin. I got back home, poured one gin out, and I've gone, I don't want that. It was the most, I don't know what it was. I think it was just, there was just something in my brain that told, and I thought, you know what? I felt a bit rough that day. Sometimes you can get a little bit of a hangover on Naltrexone and stuff like that,
Yeah.
which there were tricks for, by the way. You could always take a Pepto-Bismol in combination with an Naltrexone, which works.
That helps you,
So
the
the
Pepto-Bismol with the
nausea,
naltrexone?
yeah, helps with the nausea, Pepto-Bismol tablet. You can also take charcoal capsules as well, if that works for you. But for me, a Pepto-Bismol was like, it's a mint. So it's just like having a mint and having a tablet and waiting an hour. And then by that time, I just find that even though I never got bad nausea, it got lighter.
Yeah,
Also, having a good meal as well also makes a big difference. Don't overthink about it. That's the key. I think is not to overthink about what you're doing and just trust the process. You know.
absolutely. And I want to say really quickly too that I used activated charcoal and that really helped me because I didn't have naltrexone hangovers until the very end of like my first year on the method. But when I would finish drinking for the night, I would take the activated charcoal and I really feel like it helped me the next
Mm.
morning.
And I also think that's the beauty of what we've got with this treatment is the fact is, I mean, you've decided for a while, you decided to go abstinent, right?
Yeah, I did end up ultimately.
But you know that, say, worst case scenario, there was one day and you really, I wanted a glass of champagne for argument's sake, but you're abstinent. You could still do that because you could have the naltrexone and it would allow you to do that. So I suppose it takes that compulsion out of your brain.
Yeah, and
Does that make sense?
totally. And like for me, I'm sober, abstinent from alcohol, but I still have naltrexone and I may drink again one day. I don't know. But having that choice and that freedom to do so with the naltrexone, it's life changing.
Of course it is, because it takes that compulsion away. It's like a child. If you tell a child don't touch a lighter, child's going to want to touch the lighter even more. You see what I mean? But if you put
Absolutely.
a safeguard on the lighter and you let the kid play with the lighter, but you know the kid ain't going to get burnt,
Yeah.
it's a sensible option. Make sure that, if in doubt, wear a seatbelt. That's how I look at my naltrexone. My naltrexone is my seatbelt. And I actually now, even though I don't drink very often, I actually get a buzz out of the control more than the actual drink. And it's the most strangest thing because when I'm in a public environment like a pub or a bar, it actually feels quite nice to be the sober one leaving. And it
It's
actually feels
empowering.
nice to look the same one leaving at the end of it all. And knowing that I've only had one to drink or two to drink, I'm in control of that now. That's not in control of me no more.
Hmm.
And I think that was a lot to do with me working on myself, really. Because a lot of the time people sort of use alcohol as a mask as well. I mean, alcohol does change your mind and how your brain thinks.
Hmm.
When you take the substance away, people generally are just as funny. They're generally just as humorous. They're generally just as witty. It's just they use that as a Dutch. We're told that a bit of Dutch courage, I'll have a drink. That's what we're told. And we all know deep down that's a load of rubbish. You don't need to have a drink to have a good time.
Hmm.
But it's a psychological thing, especially in the world that we live in today and society. where, you know, going out, parties, bars, clubs, drink, it goes hand in hand. You know what I mean? So the beautiful thing about the Sinclair method that I like more than probably the AA thing for me was, I noticed I would get to that point where I would sort of say, sorry, sorry. I would get to that point where I would white knuckle it and go, I'm not drinking. And then I would crave, and then I'd go for, and I'd want to drink more and more and more, and then I would drink, then I would go bang. With the Naltrexone, it allows me to have a drink at Christmas. It allows me to have a drink on my birthday. It takes the compulsion away from me, if you know what I mean. And I think I'm repeating myself now, but yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. It's kind of given me room to discover other things about myself that the addiction kind of masked.
Yeah.
Because you'd be surprised when you're in that addictive mode, you kind of, when you sort of try and hit that reach that point of sobriety, you're almost relearning about yourself. You're rediscovering yourself, because you almost kind of lose who you really are, because the alcohol controls you. You don't control it. So it's almost like you're seeing the light through the clouds finally. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really well said. So I want to
So
ask you, because you talked about, you know, people using alcohol to cope, or people can get stuck in, this is common experience on the Sinclair method, getting stuck in habitual drinking where, you know, they've been on the method, they might not be craving it as much, but they're still kind of habitually drinking because perhaps they're using it to cope, or they don't have other areas of their life that they, you know, things they love to do. So what's your kind of experience and thoughts in this after 2 years on the method? And it sounds like you drink just a couple times a year now, and it's very,
yeah,
wow.
literally a couple. But the thing with me, my thing now is, I had to find a distraction at the beginning. So basically for me, what got me at the beginning was plants, a bit of reading, I would say, educating my brain on what the process was all about. So reading up articles, finding out about it, having something to look after. That's why I've become a bit of a plant fanatic. A bit of baking. I'm all for alternatives anyway. So I like alternative. I do these homemade teas now at the moment. That seems to be the new thing for me. So for me, it was all about finding other things that interest me rather than just pouring a drink. And it was actually quite nice, because you always find for people, it's just a case of, it's that first one. Once they're on the Sinclair method, they can have alcohol 3 days, but it's just that first one. Well, the only way that I would kind of explain going around that is do something else, try something different. You've broken the cycle because you're going alcohol 3 days. Try a soft drink, try a herbal tea, try going for a walk, try reading a book. Do you know what I mean? Try going to an AA meeting, because you might still want or need that camaraderie of, you know, being around people, or going to a smart recovery meeting where, you know, you can sort of get out and you can meet other people with addiction issues, and they may give you tips. You know, take yourself away from familiarity and do something different. Even if it means that you've got to stay at home, do something different. I mean, for me, I kind of thought to myself after a while, well, why am I knocking myself buying that for, when I used to buy 2 bottles of wine? It used to cost me £6, and I'm moaning that cost £4. But there, I'm only going to have 1 glass of that, you know, that lovely soft elderflower cordial. I'm only going to have 1 glass of, and I'm moaning about that. It's all about prioritizing your brain and putting things into perspective. That's what I think. And like I said, relearning about yourself, re-educating yourself. If there's something out there that you want to try it, do it. Something different. It doesn't matter what it is. Lavender lemonade we was talking about earlier. Making herbal teas. Trying something different. So when you're cooking, you've got a drink by the side. You've still got a drink by the side, but it's different. Trying to say to yourself, well, okay, I'm not craving, and I know that when I have that first drink, I crave alcohol. So for me, I've got to try something new. I've got to do, I don't know. For me, I'm okay being abstinent. So I won't have that first drink. I'll have a cup of tea instead. I'll have an ice cream instead. I don't know. I'll do something different instead. And then I'll moderate it. I'll only drink on the weekends when I'm on the Naltrexone. You
Mm-hmm.
know, re-educate yourself with the days that you're going. Write it all down as well. Write what you're doing down and see if there's a transformation. Have a notebook in front of you. See if there's a transformation of where I was, where I'm at, and where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Try something different each week.
Yeah, I
You
think
know.
and that even just the trying something new, I notice it can, and myself too, I can get caught up in it just being new and intimidating and it being so easy to kind of rest on what we've known, which is like drinking or whatever. But the trying things new, like everything you're describing, it's really little stuff. Like for me, I always talk about the baby steps, like you like baking and reading, just like these things that can bring us so much joy in life. But when we're dependent on alcohol, often we neglect because alcohol just comes first. So I really appreciate how you're just kind of breaking it down and, starting really small and simple so that you can build yourself back up. Because as you start to see yourself do these things that are normal, hobbies or whatever, it really changes your perspective of yourself and what you can do. And for me, it just keeps building and building from there. So thank you
And
for
also, you're
that.
getting all this energy back as well. You're getting all this energy back from not drinking.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, it's knowing what to do with that energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I
Exactly.
mean, Katie? That's all it is. It's knowing what to do with that energy. Like, what do I do now? Like, I've got all this energy, but where do I take it? Because you're so familiar with the drink, it seems the easiest option. But you can go for a walk, you can go for a coffee. Since you
Mm-hmm.
can't go for a coffee, since you can't go for an ice cream and sit with your friends and drink a herbal tea. I mean, there's loads of coffee shops you can do that in, or go to an art gallery, go to a museum, go for a walk. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Buy a smoothie, go to the supermarket. It's trying to implement those things into your life to kind of break that habitual cycle of
Mm-hmm.
drinking day in, day out. Like I said, you've been given a lifeline
Mm-hmm.
to actually have the option to go and drink socially or not. So embrace it, enjoy it,
Yeah.
and don't beat yourself up about it.
I
Just go
want
with it.
I want to ask you, because I know you mentioned your drinking really picked up after you had some deaths of people close to you. And so, like a lot of people, you were using alcohol to cope. Has it been hard for you to develop coping mechanisms outside of alcohol, or what has that experience been like as you kind of learn to take care of yourself and cope in different ways other than alcohol?
Well, I do suffer with social anxiety, and at the moment, I'm actually awaiting on an appointment with a therapist to go. I mean, I've had CBT already, and I'm sure there's something more there, but I don't want to sort of say what it is until I know for certain. I am on anxiety medications. I think for me now, it's about gauging myself. I gauge the time. It's the times that, like the bereavements that probably triggered me to that probably was at the point where it kind of made me go rock bottom. But I would say I was drinking daily before then as well.
Okay.
You know, I was drinking daily before then as well. But I was one of those types of drinkers that I would go get up in the morning, get showered. It's at something. It wasn't always that bad. I would have a coffee, get ready, go and do what I was going to do. Then I would come home or even evening, walk round back with my brother, come back home, and I'd always have to gauge myself to get to the shops to buy a drink. I'd always have to buy that bottle of wine or those 2 bottles of wine. Alcohol's so cheap in London as well. Like you can go and get cheap wine and things like that. You've got diff shops that do reasonable booze. So for me, I was just chasing that fix. And I'd always say to myself, tomorrow I'll try. Tomorrow I'll try. Tomorrow never come.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, one of my key tools was jotting things down. So what I was drinking at the beginning, and I'd even write the price next to it and the amount of units. It just was little tools like that. There's a TSM app as well that you've got now.
Yeah.
So at the time we didn't have that. So it was just basically, I had to write it down in a little notepad. And that kind of encouraged me. I didn't realize how much I was drinking. The first thing is, I would say to anyone who has got an alcohol dependency problem is be honest with yourself. Only when you admit that you're powerless to the substance can you truly be cured. Do you know what I mean? You can truly be worked on. There's things we can do about alcohol dependence now, or AUD. Once upon a time, we had no option. Now we do have options. So be honest with yourself. What do you want from it? What do you want to achieve? Where do you want to go? Why, obviously, if life's worth living, then grasp it, enjoy it, and roll with it. Take yourself away from negative people and keep your mind tunnel focused. Get some counseling, get some anxiety medication if that's what you need.
Yeah.
And just, apply your way through. I mean, I had to go to 4 different doctors, and then only the 5th doctor I managed to get. It got to the point where I actually turned around and said, listen, if you don't give me this medication, I'm going to go online and buy it.
Yeah.
So, which was quite a tricky one, because, I mean, I managed to get Naltrexone. And over here, they use a similar medication called Naltrexone, which I haven't used. I just use Naltrexone. Be firm about your goals and be flexible about your methods. That's one good tip.
I love that. Yeah, whatever gets you there.
Whatever gets you there. Don't tell me how. No, don't tell me how. Tell me when. So I'm going to get there. I don't know how, but I know I'm going to get there. And if you keep that focus in your brain, you'd be surprised what you can achieve. And sometimes you have to bribe a doctor. I mean, do you know what? If that's what you have to do, just say, listen, I bought them online, they work. Your doctor knows a doctor's there to help you get better. He's not there to make you get any worse. So if it means that you're going to have to get these 2 boxes of pills once a year, or 1 box of pill even, to keep yourself straightened out, well, at the end of the day, if you don't want to catch a sexually transmitted disease, you'd wear a condom. Same thing with an Naltrexone.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? You don't want to have an attack when you've got diabetes, you take the insulin. It's a disease of the brain, and it's a learned behavior. So I believe you should treat it like a disease. Well, anyway, it worked for me. So, I mean, I would say I'm 90% confident in this treatment, 95% confident in this treatment, because from where I was at the end, where I was literally relapsing, and I was waking up and there was like black bag and there was bottles where I would be on 3-4 blade benders, to just like that, just this pill. And all it took was compliance. That's the problem with the world that we've got to live in. Just comply. Just do the thing, do it properly. Take the pill, wait the full hour, wait 1 hour and 10 minutes, drink. If you want to have another drink, it says between 6 and 8 hours. So if you're going to double dose, somewhere in the middle, maybe 6.5 hours, take another pill. And whatever. Just be compliant and trust the process. Relax with it. Go with it. And enjoy sobriety.
Yeah, this method gives you the opportunity to be able to enjoy sobriety, because like you've talked about the white knuckling and just resisting having to go through sobriety that way, compared to this where it's complete freedom and alcohol's not even a blip in the memory bank. It's incredible. It's totally different than what it was like for me trying to go sober before.
And do you ever get people? I mean, I've had friends that have sort of gone through, but ain't it the placebo effect? And I'm like, no. I'm like, no way. I mean, they've done clinical trials on this drug, right? Loads of clinical trials. If people only just read, you would see that it ain't a placebo. It actually works. If you say no at the beginning to the process of taking anything, you're almost basically putting doubt into your brain. Walk into it with an open mind. What have you got to lose? Nothing. You've got nothing to lose. You're at your rock bottom for being alcohol dependent anyway. People lose their wives, their families, their jobs, their homes, their cars. They lose their humility. They use their humility more than their sobriety. when they become alcohol dependent.
Mm-hmm.
So this is giving you the chance to get that back. So don't be arrogant. Go in with an open mind. I'm just going to try. What is the worst that's going to happen? And if people are going to judge you on that basis, stay away from them.
Mm-hmm.
Stay focused to the goal. And eventually, they will tell. They will tell because they will tell in the way you behave, in the way you... Because you know in yourself, when you're clean and you don't drink or you live this kind of sober way of living, you naturally change.
Mm-hmm.
So let nature take its course. Let the natural way of it, let it work naturally. Let the drug do the work for you. You don't have to do the work for the drug. Do you know
Or
what I
don't,
mean?
yeah, and don't fight the drug. Don't, miscomply and ignore the signals. Yeah, fighting the drug is another thing that people,
Of course.
yeah,
This is the thing. I mean, you're fighting something that is basically there to help you because of the habit. So this is why I say sometimes counselling alongside Naltrexone, or even going to a couple of smart recovery meetings or AA meetings helps,
absolutely.
because sometimes you always just need that one person to say one thing that brings you that can be your aha moment where you go, I didn't realize, but that's exactly what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
there to get better. You want to get better. I mean, I didn't do any step work. I tried and I didn't. I personally didn't like the whole way of the step thing. But who says you can't go to an AA meeting or a smart recovery meeting or a group alcohol meeting at your local doctor's surgery? As long as you're taking something from it, there's no law that says you've got to do anything.
Yeah.
You're there to get well like the rest of them. Just because you may choose, I don't know, maybe just because one person may choose abstinence and another person may choose moderation management, doesn't necessarily mean that person's less recovered than that person. It just means that person's chosen something different,
Mm-hmm.
which may lead into that. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So keep an open mind.
Yeah, keeping an open mind and also just being discerning with who you share with, because there are the people who won't look at the science or just don't believe in the method because they're more of an abstinence only based approach. And so I think, sometimes people want to convince others that this works, myself included in that, but it's important to be discerning with who we share it with, especially early on, because if we're getting discouragement from folks, like, we don't need that. So if you are not sure someone's going to be on board, there's no need to tell them what you're doing. There's
You
absolutely.
know, by trade, I'm a hairdresser. I mean, I haven't worked in a long time, in a while. But you can't educate people that don't want to be educated.
Mm-hmm.
And I've come to that conclusion, that analogy. Some people will say no before they've even given it a try. Some people will say, I want that, and they don't know the chemistry behind it. They don't know the physiological chemistry behind it. It's like the hair, dyeing someone's hair from black to blonde. It's going to go orange, but I don't want no orange in my hair. Now, to a hairdresser, that's common sense, because hair has to go through stages before it lifts. The same thing with naltrexone. It has to go through stages before it lifts.
I love
So
that.
don't waste your energy with people that don't want to be educated and don't want to learn. Let them go about their business and do what they want to do. Focus on yourself. The ultimate goal is, I'm a big believer in, let your work do the talk. Let your actions do the talk. And when they come back to you at a later date and go, well, how did you manage to do that? Or I done this. And then they feel like they may know someone else who keeps on going down that repetitive cycle. Eventually it might click.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you don't waste your time educating people that don't want to be educated. Show them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way. That's the best way to do it. It's like, now I feel confident, and obviously I'm not gonna, because I want a tea in a minute. But I feel confident now in sitting with my mum and having a gin and tonic,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that I could have one, two, forget it, I'm done. I know tomorrow I'm not going to wake up and want anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the beauty of the Sinclair method. It gives you that option that you
Absolutely.
can just stop,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So,
Well, And it's been so amazing to talk with you today. You're so full of wisdom and insight from your experience and just so, yeah, vulnerable and open with us all. So I want to thank you for sharing today. And is there
You're welcome.
anything that you want to leave us with, or things, last final thoughts or things you'd like to share with folks who are watching this? Don't want to put you
Um,
on the spot. Sorry.
any final words? I don't know. I think for me, I think all I'm going to say, if it's to do with the Sinclair method, is just trust the process,
Mm-hmm.
relax into it, enjoy it. You know, Rome weren't built overnight, so you got to just basically go with it. Listen to your body when your body tells you certain things. Believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say. Mental health, if you've got mental health issues, they don't tend to go away, even though the alcohol dependency goes away. But if you take the alcohol dependency away, that's one less thing to worry about.
It's like not putting fuel on the fire anymore.
That's right. So just trust yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be nice to yourself. Learn to be nice to yourself by the smallest things that you can do. And it is hard. And it will take time. And at the beginning, it'll be difficult. But if you can make a little approach day by day by doing something nice or something good to make yourself feel a little bit better, eventually you will build that confidence up to living a normal life again, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
As best as you can, anyway. You'll live a life as best as you can,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Trust the process. That's all I would say, probably.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anthony. It's been wonderful to speak with you. Enjoy the rest
You
of your
too.
day.
You too. Bye-bye, Katie.
Bye.